The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Classes and work are suspended in areas affected by Tropical Storm Agaton. The following areas announced the suspension of classes in all levels, as well as work suspension in both the public and private sectors: Southern Leyte, Catbalogan and Guian in Eastern Samar, and Biliran. Meanwhile, work in both public and private sectors are also suspended in Cebu City. But classes are suspended in all levels up to colleges with face-to-face classes. And the Pilar Sorsogon LGU has suspended classes in all levels in work and in the government. Meanwhile, all classes are suspended in Cebu Province, in the cities of Tacloban and Sorsogon, while Gubat and Castilla in Sorsogon announced the suspension of classes from preschool to high school. Pag-asa has raised the red rainfall warning in some areas in the Visayas. As of 8 in the morning today, red rainfall warning is raised over the northern and central portion of Cebu, Leyte, and southern Leyte. This means that residents should take precautionary measures as severe flooding is expected over the areas. Meanwhile, the orange warning with threat of flood in low-lying areas and those near river channels has been raised over Biliran. And the yellow rainfall warning is raised over the southern portions of Cebu, eastern Samar, and the northern portion of Negros Oriental, meaning that there is a possibility of flood in these low-lying areas. Meanwhile, in Luzon, light to moderate rain is expected in Bulacan, Laguna, and Rizal, with occasional heavy rains expected over Quezon Province. And in Mindanao, light to moderate to heavy rain is expected over areas including Tawi-Tawi, Dinagat Island, Sulu, and Basilan. The rest are flashed on your screens. Pag-asa has lifted signal number 2 in all areas, but many still remain under signal number 1. These include the southern portion of Masbate here in Luzon, as well as Surigao del Norte and the Dinagat Islands in Mindanao. In Visayas, areas under signal number 1 include eastern Samar, northern Samar, Biliran, and Leyte. And the same goes for southern Leyte, the northeastern portion of Cebu, including Camotes Island, and the eastern portion of Bohol. Pag-asa says strong winds with minimal to minor threat to property will prevail in these areas over 36 hours. Agaton has weakened into a tropical depression while over San Pablo Bay. As of 7 a.m. today, TD Agaton was spotted over the coastal waters of Tanawan in Leyte. It is expected to continue moving north-northwestward slowly and is forecast to reach the Philippine Sea by tomorrow. COVID-19 cases in Shanghai reaches a record high over the 2 years since the pandemic. But China continues to defend its zero-COVID strategy. The U.S. is now urging Americans to reconsider travel to China to avoid what Washington calls the arbitrary enforcement of rules in places like Shanghai. Bloomberg's Stephen Engel reports on Bloomberg Daybreak Australia.
Steve, so what's the latest on the Shanghai lockdown?
Yeah, well, despite the fact that, of course, they've been in lockdown now since March 28th, we're seeing a record number of cases in Shanghai. Yes, they're testing more, so they're going to find more cases, but still the numbers in Shanghai on Saturday, which are the latest numbers that we have, we'll get Sunday's numbers in just a little bit, is 24,943. That is the majority that has been reported across China for the same day of 26,355. So, you know, it's 5 times the number that we saw on the first day of the phased lockdown of the city of just under 5,000. So infections keep climbing despite the lockdown. We did see on Friday reports of those scattered protests. We need to eat. We want our freedom, this and that. So patience is running thin as we are entering now what would be the 3rd week of what's essentially a citywide lockdown. It was supposed to be a phased lockdown starting in the east and then spread to the west. But because because the numbers keep on climbing, it's essentially a citywide lockdown. Yes, there's been some relaxation. People can go out if their apartment complexes do not have any cases and the like, but still, there's growing frustration. And there's a bit of a frustration as well from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing, criticizing the criticism, if you will, from the United States that essentially is asking American citizens not or to reconsider travel to China, in particular places like Shanghai, as you said, because of what's potentially Washington says arbitrary enforcement of these curbs. This is what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Zhao Lijian said. We are strongly dissatisfied with and firmly opposed to the U.S. side's groundless accusation against China's epidemic response policies and have lodged solemn representations with the U.S. side. He goes on to say it should be pointed out that China's anti-epidemic policies are science-based and effective, and we are fully confident that Shanghai and other places in China will prevail over the new wave of the epidemic. Speaking of other areas of China, Guangzhou is entering a new phase as well. In-person classrooms at schools and kindergartens have been halted until at least April 17th because of a few cases have shown up there. Also, Beijing is going to start imposing some of the strictest restrictions we've seen since the beginning days of the pandemic, as the authorities in Beijing obviously concerned that what's happening in Shanghai could and is spreading to other places.
Steve, it looks like cases are falling, though, in Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's right. We're getting down to numbers pre, the fifth wave. When we had, I think, a month ago, we were looking at 55,000 plus new cases a day when the virus fifth wave of Omicron was really spreading through the city. We are now down to, on Sunday, 1,921 new cases, including 18 imported, 65 new deaths. So unfortunately, it is down from that peak, as I mentioned. And they've had this voluntary citywide testing campaign. 70% of those rapid antigen tests that were done at home those positives, I should say, reported to be asymptomatic. So there were 2,202, now that they've wrapped up that voluntary testing, there were 2,202 rapid antigen tests at home positive. And it looks as though those kind of numbers do not indicate that the virus wave is on the uptick. So Carrie Lam did allude to the fact that she is likely to be announcing a phased plan, detailed plan of phasing out some of these social distancing restrictions. We could get that as early this week.
One analyst believes Will Smith's Oscar slap and the subsequent 10-year ban will most likely be the actor's most enduring legacy. Let's watch this.
Barring him from the ceremony for 10 years, that sounds kind of harsh. I mean, but it's about the only thing they could do short of revoking his Oscar, taking back the Oscar he just won for King Richard. And that wasn't something that had much enthusiasm among the governors. He can still be nominated for an Oscar, although I've had so many Academy members tell me, fat chance of that ever happening again, because there's so much ill will toward him right now. But he could still be nominated for an Oscar. He could still win an Oscar. He can't vote at the Oscars. He can't attend the Oscars. He can't participate in any official Academy ceremonies. That's about it. We do know that this is America. We have a lot of second chances these days, third chances, fourth chances. So it would not be surprising to see him find his way back into the public's good graces, but it's never going to be the same. And what should have been the best night of his life is going to follow him. It'll probably be, the thing that most people remember about him, unfortunately.
Time now for a quick look at some of today's headlines. It's going to be a rainy Holy Week in some parts of the country due to Tropical Cyclone Agaton and two other weather disturbances. Senator Ping Lacson is pushing for Senate President Tito Soto as a common vice presidential candidate for him and Senator Manny Pacquiao. But the People's Champ says no deal. And Meralco is now leading the final series of the PBA Governor's Cup after scoring another win against Barangay Ginebra in Game 3. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us later at 11 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We're One News.